Definitely saw a distinct reaction when Alphabet raised CapEx. And so do you think that we'll see the same? There's sort of an expectation now that because it's an AI arms race, that all the other ones are going to raise their CapEx spend as well. And do you think that also gets received negatively by the markets?
I think the market's looking for any reason to go negative on the AI trade and the AI investments. The beneficiary, of course, the memory stocks, Nvidia, all the other chip folks on the other end. But it is a race. This is a winner-takes-all market. And if you're not making that investment, you're going to be falling behind. They're all competing to be able to get to general AGI or general artificial intelligence. And if you don't get there fast enough, you're not going to be able to win. And all the prices are going up. So we've got an AI inflation going on at the same time.
I mean, part of raising the CapEx is just the price for everything. It costs more at this point. But is there a point at which the stock price and stock reaction, investors' reaction to increased spending impacts how much they actually raise CapEx?
I think at this point, they don't care. They know what the goal in sight is. They're not thinking short term. Amazon has never, ever said, hey, we're going to look at short-term gain over long-term benefits. So they're going to make the bet. Microsoft probably will be the most cautious of the Mag 7 doing that. Meta, of course, if you notice, doesn't care. They're like, we're going to keep up. So everyone's going after the same game, and investors are just going to have to wait, kind of waiting for like what the AI payouts are going to be.
Mm-hmm. If you look elsewhere in the sort of the financial world, I mean, a lot of people are saying that interest rates will stay higher for longer. And I'm wondering also if the cost of financing is going to ever come into play here as more and more companies tap debt markets.
Well, the debt markets are quite happy, as you noticed. And
sure.
That's what's going on is
for now.
For now, exactly, until it comes to roost. But interest rates are probably going to continue to go up, and that is definitely going to be a factor in this game.
But it's not going to prevent them from. I mean. Cost of capital is going to be higher, and they just keep going.
They're going to continue. But look, take Google, for example, or Alphabet. They have the free cash flow. They're growing 80 to 90% on the Google Cloud side. YouTube revenues were still doing very well. They've got Waymo coming up in the back end. So for them, it's a pretty solid investment. If you look on the Microsoft side, there's a little bit more tentativeness, right? Not all the areas are firing at the same levels that they should be. But if you look at Meta, ad business is doing really well. They're going to continue to be able to do well. So they can continue to fund this, but it is definitely one of the biggest wealth transfers between, what you had as asset light to asset heavy, and the hardware vendors are the winners.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, in terms of the recipients of that CapEx spend, how much more appreciation do you expect to see? Because it seems like of late, we're seeing a little bit of a hesitation in terms of, the day that Alphabet raised its CapEx, the next day, we saw a positive reaction initially in the session to some of the recipients, the beneficiaries of the CapEx spend, and then it just didn't hold on. And recently, memory stocks have had some trouble. Is there a limit to this? I mean, we did see for Nvidia, which could arguably be the biggest beneficiary of this all, its stock has really had some difficulty of late.
Well, it's all been priced into Nvidia, and I think that's what people are worried about.
So are we at that point here for the other beneficiaries?
Not yet. AMD still has a lot to go. I just came back from the AMD conference yesterday. You're still seeing the opportunity in the data centers. We're going to see lower cost compute, lower cost of energy over line. The one factor that everyone's forgetting is permitting for data centers is what's holding everyone up. That is probably the hardest part, getting the permitting in there and also getting the energy constraints that are there.
So does that just prolong that return on investment that we want to see?
It's stretching it out 18 to 24 months if you're actually forecasting.
So if you're an investor, you have to wait an additional that much to see what the return on investment of a data center that is being forecasted today?
We got the permitting, we got the pressures coming from the different states, we got the moratorium in this state that's going on. It's adding pressure to the environment.
Will investors wait that long? They're impatient right now, right?
They are very impatient. They're waiting for any news to actually jump and actually trade against. But here's why they're all in it. The volatility markets are pretty high as well. If you look at what people are doing on the hedging and the trading against volatility, these are all volatility stocks.
Mm-hmm. Let's touch on Intel. Fastest revenue growth in 15 years. The stock's up 2% today. Different picture than our tech stories yesterday morning. We saw down arrows of pressure on the markets. This is being received differently.
Yeah, Intel had a nice rally off their earnings. If you look at the 1-minute chart, though, it's come back down. It's only up about 3% now pre-market, despite good numbers. You mentioned earnings per share, non-GAAP earnings per share, 42 cents versus 21 cents expected. Remember, a year ago it was negative 10 cents. So this is a nice recovery. Revenue, $16.1 billion, up 25% year over year. They beat that estimate. Gross margins came in at 41.8%, outperforming expectations. So the news is all good, but this stock has had a pretty incredible run, and we'll see if it can hold on to their gains throughout the day. Right now, last I looked, I had it up about 3%, but it was higher overnight. So it, like the market, has come down off its recent highs, Nicole. So it's still going to be a long trading day today. I think there's going to be some ebb and flow to this market.
So last but not least, before I let you go, I wanted to touch also on Lisa Su from AMD at the Advancing AI conference. A lot of excitement around there, really giving us the outlook going forward and saying frontier models, agents, physical AI, with AMD leading the way, AI excitement, and obviously you have Jefferies and many others, UBS raising price targets this morning, talking about server leadership, expanded AI customer base. What do you think? Good news here? I mean, how do you seeing the stock here on the move?
Oh, absolutely, it's good news, and here's why. Total addressable market. That's the words that are going to cause a lot of, or get a lot of attention from Lisa Su's comments yesterday. Total addressable market. They updated all the 2030 numbers, and here it is. Updated total CPU, total addressable market, up to 2030 from 120 billion to 220 billion. That's just the CPU. Now, the updated AI accelerator TAM over the last several quarters from 500 million in 2028 up to 1 trillion in 2030. Now to 1.4 trillion in 2030. So all their total addressable market numbers are heading way up. And so what we thought was a good picture is even better than we thought. So yeah, they didn't talk about earnings. They came out with a statement saying we're only 10 days away from earnings. We're not going to talk about earnings. But the products and the total addressable market is what's really making the headlines. Very aspirational, Nicole.
By most accounts, this was a very strong quarter. It beats along every product line, and CapEx is raised, Vivek. Lip Butan on the call yesterday was talking about customers basically lining up for 14A, even though the product wouldn't ramp for another couple of years. Can you talk to me about that plus the raised CapEx and how we can think about CapEx as CapEx being spent to meet demand that they are seeing right now?
Yes, thanks, Melissa. So I think what last night's earnings show is that Intel is not just standing on the sidelines. It's actually actively participating in this AI infrastructure build-out in two very important ways. The first way that you mentioned, which is their strength in their core server CPU business, up almost 59% versus last year. You know, this is the fastest growth rate that they are seeing in the last 15 years. So very notable. And a big part of this growth rate is not just units. They are actually mixing up the quality of their products. So a lot of the strength that they are seeing is because of the better products that they are shipping. And of course, because the CPU, right, their core product is finding a very strong place in this agentic AI deployment. So that's kind of the first box they checked. The second very important box they checked is dropping a lot more hints about the fact that they are getting closer to announcing more deals in their external foundry business. And, you know, right now there is a shortage of everything in semiconductors, right? There's a shortage of wafers, there's a shortage of substrates, there's just a shortage of leading edge capacity. And Intel is the only US-based player in the leading edge capacity. So the fact that they're able to improve the manufacturing yields right now of their 18A process, and then in the future of the 14A process, and signal, that they are going to raise CapEx, I think those are all very positive signs.
There's a narrative going on this morning, post-earnings, Vivek, that they have short-term momentum to hand off to achieve the long-term growth. Does that merit a 100 forward PE on Intel when just, and I know they're in different areas of the chip stack, but Nvidia is trading at a fifth of that?
Sure. No, I think that's a fair point. Nvidia is definitely less expensive. It's a more compelling valuation. But I think Intel is a very different story in that there is long-term strategic value to Intel's US-based manufacturing assets. right? There's only 2 or 3 companies on the planet that can make leading edge. And right now we are extremely dependent on Taiwan Semiconductor. So the fact that Intel is getting better and providing a domestic option for making these leading edge chips, I don't think that can be ignored. Now, it is going to take time to play out. It's not going to get ready overnight. But the fact that, Intel, which is being led by the very prudent management team, that they're willing to devote more capital resources, they are doing more strategic hires. They recently hired the ex-CEO of SK Hynix to really shore up their efforts in advanced packaging. I think those are all very good signs. So I agree with you on a very near-term basis. It is possible that Intel looks expensive, but as we look at the potential for leverage and earnings growth, we think their earnings would probably quadruple over the next 3 to 4 years.
Did you get much color on the 10 long-term agreements that they were talking about on the call with customers, and how much of that is price locked and how much of that is volume locked, and if it's take or pay?
Sure. I think, Melissa, in semiconductors, enforcing these agreements is always problematic. So the core is that, one needs to believe that the AI build-out is going to be very strong over the next few years. One has to believe that Intel will continue to make progress in their manufacturing. I think as long as they do those things, I think long-term agreements serve as some level of commitment, but I don't think there are perfect guarantees for anything in semiconductors. But the fact of the matter is that everyone is short of supply. If we step aside and take a look at Google's recent earnings, I believe they use the word constraints, I think like 8 or 9 times on the call. So that tells you that this build out is for real. This build out is happening across multiple customers, the top 5 in the US, along with neoclouds, along with sovereign, along with enterprise. So there is a very broad-based infrastructure build out, and everyone wants to make sure that when they're spending these hundreds of billions of dollars of CapEx, there is actually a reliable supply to back it up. So I think whether it's Intel, whether it's Micron, I think everyone in the supply chain is benefiting from this longer-term agreement and alignment with their customers.
And I know, Vivek, this was a moment in time, but when Alphabet announced that it was raising its CapEx, the next day we did see some of those sort of the spend beneficiaries go higher, but not able to hold on to gains. Is there a concern that these stocks will stop rising, even on the back of increased CapEx?
Yeah, I think the scrutiny around return on investment is very natural. I think it is very justified. At the same time, we are also going through this summer period, after a quarter where the semiconductor stocks went up over 80%. So I think some give back is natural. Of course, we are seeing all the tensions in the Middle East and what they are doing to interest rates. And a lot more of this infrastructure is going to be funded by debt. We understand a lot of those concerns. But I think it's important to realize that for the top hyperscalers, investing is critical for their ability to grow. Without these investments, it'll be harder for them to grow. And more importantly, they are going to be exposed to the disruption risk of somebody like an OpenAI or Anthropic who are coming after a lot of those businesses, along with a lot of the 60 other neoclouds who are coming after those businesses. So I think spending from the hyperscalers is both kind of offensive in nature, right? It's helping them grow faster, create new revenue. It's also defensive in nature. And we think that continues for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I think it's a good time for those headwinds to hit because earnings season should be front and center. And I think it's going to reinforce that this bull market is built on fundamentals. There's a lot of speculation in corners of the market. There's obvious headwinds that we've been, spending most of the last few weeks talking about. But investors, especially longer term investors, need to focus on the big picture and the fundamentals. And I think having earnings front and center is going to help reinforce that. And obviously, we've gotten some great results so far.
The big picture, though, seems that, the AI trade powers everything, Ross, and there's some doubts about spending in the AI trade, and investors have no qualms about deserting a stock, even if it's for a day or two, that they deem is spending too much. How does that factor into the high expectations going into earnings season to see some pretty drastic reactions to stocks? Like Alphabet, for one, I'm not asking you to comment on Alphabet specifically, but they had a great quarter, but the raise in CapEx was enough to send the stock lower by about 7%.
Yeah, I think it's healthy that the market's focus on free cash flow has come into the forefront, right? It's showing that investors are not just focused on growth at any cost, and they're looking at CapEx discipline and keeping that free cash flow positive. We also have to remember, the hyperscalers are a big part of the market, but every dollar in CapEx they're putting into the ecosystem is going down to memory, to cooling, to data centers. And that's helping the market broaden. It's helping the market stay positive and have a nice year-to-date return, despite the Mag 7 being underwater. So, obviously there's going to be a lot of focus on, Meta and Amazon next week and expectations for big CapEx guidance. But if you look at the rest of earnings, I mean, banks had a great start to earnings, good lending, strong capital markets activity. So AI is obviously still the big focus. The concentration in the market is around AI, but the breadth underneath the surface has been really positive and I think is worth focusing on here.
In terms of positioning for the rest of the year, do you see the broadening trade continue?
I think it can. I would like it to. There's obviously momentum in certain sectors like financials, like healthcare, and there's been a bit of broadening. I do think it's contingent on not getting in a huge extended conflict in the Middle East. I mean, higher oil, higher yields, that's going to hit the more cyclical sectors of the economy that have really caught a bit over the last few months. We want things like industrials, like transports to work. It's hard for that to continue in an environment where oil is over $100 a barrel and the 10-year is pushing towards 5%. So I think it can work. I think there's momentum there, but I do think it's contingent on some sort of diplomacy, even if it's a couple weeks away, that we don't get into this extended, protracted conflict. So fingers crossed, but we'll see.
What is extended and protracted in your view? I mean, we already saw Brent hit 102 intraday. I think it was yesterday. And granted, that's, a blip in time. But if that sort of bumping along this level for a while happens, at what point do you say, you know what, that's going to be my trigger to sort of downgrade my outlook for the markets?
Yeah, it's a little bit less to me about the price of oil, because we saw in the spring that even when oil was still high, the market was able to work because the directionality of both the U.S. and Iran leadership was towards a diplomatic solution. It was bumpy, it was choppy, but at every turn, you could kind of tell that neither side really wanted to engage in a hot war. And right now, the market is seeing the commentary from our administration that, and they're not feeling that. So I think the shift will be more on how the war is being talked about from leadership on both sides. Obviously, we want to keep, WTI under key levels, keep gas prices, under $4 a gallon if we can. But the consumer has not really been a big part of this market all year. The discretionary stocks, the staple stocks, they're both laggards. So I don't know that you need the consumer to fully re-engage to get the market on the right track. It would obviously be a nice tailwind. So we're just watching the conversation. We're watching fighting in both straits. And we'll see. But, at this point in time, it's hard to get really bullish about adding new money if your time horizon is a couple of weeks. If you're thinking longer term, I think the focus on earnings helps things a lot.
What if it's a year? Somewhere between a couple of weeks and the long term, like for retirement.
Yeah, I mean, look, an escalation and a protracted conflict that lasted into 2027 would be a huge risk-off event. I mean, it's hard. I kind of stand here as a perma-bull and optimist, but it's hard to argue that wouldn't have a severe impact on a consumer who's already squeezed and who has less tailwinds than we had when this was going on in the spring, right? We had the big tax refund windfall. Mm-hmm. That's no longer the case. We had things like the World Cup to look forward to. No longer the case. So the consumer stocks have not worked, but the consumer is still 60, 70% of the U.S. economy. And even with the AI trade front and center, it's really hard to keep things going if the consumer is not engaged. And, we know what higher gas prices and higher inflation do to consumer budgets, especially on the lower income end of the spectrum.